Start again. Start again. Start again.
My friend was sitting in playing subbing, playing baritone sax on Mr. What's his name? Barry Harris, the great bebop pianist, doing a thing for chorus and orchestras and big bands, rehearsing down in the basement of Cooper Union. So I go, like one seat left and one seat left and one seat left. Smoke, everything. Smoke, everything. Just checking the rehearsal. And then at one point, all of a sudden, it hits kind of a fast swing time. I'm sitting in the middle of the concert, all of a sudden the entire audience goes, actually, of course, figured out after a second or two, sat down in the middle of the chorus, that it wasn't those 2 seconds of magic.
My first trip to Asia changed my life, and I don't say that lightly. It's not that I had no knowledge of Asia beforehand. I had a Chinese roommate and spent as much time in Chinatown as the next New Yorker. But that was different. That was a subculture that earned some street cred in the mainstream. In Asia, I'm the subculture, to a mainstream that is nowhere near as inviting to diversity as mine. Up until then, I'd never found myself immersed in a culture so radically different. It's not just the language. Language shapes the thinking. And just going out for food is an exercise in mind expansion, opening new options, questioning your basic assumptions. No wonder Cade was so taken with Asia. It was his drug of choice. The stories of Paul Bowles and Somerset Maugham are filled with travelers who, once they find themselves in a world so different, crumble. Their values plummet. They go insane. These are people who can't handle drugs. It's a steep learning curve. I haven't made as much progress with the languages I like, but maybe because of that, I took nothing from it. It's exhausting.
We had regular Sunday afternoon concert dinners and besides, we could spend a couple of nights a week. Almost all of the and golf cards were behind for years. This was all through 71 and 74. We never shut the downstairs door.
We do that with the dynamic for the children's institute that started the summer festival in France. I was very upset about having to practice.
I was sitting at the keyboard working when my 4-year-old daughter came up to me and said, "Daddy, can you guess what I'm doing?" She was making a somewhat violent gesture. She was making up theater chairs, which we had found in the street, and which lined 3 sides, 3 large rooms.
I have a wedge-shaped scar on my left ankle that dates back to 1960 across the road from the fair. They laid out plots and dug holes, but nothing got away. One day I went swimming and one day I was with the dogs. I lost it. The long hair was like walking on Mercy and Roscoe were spying the unskilled predators. That day at the pond, though, they managed to find their baby woodchuck. I got between the dogs and the woodchuck. It seemed like a long time. It was probably only a few frantic minutes. The 4 of us danced around the pond and through the underbrush, the dogs barking and lunging, until finally the woodchuck bit me, leaving a large gash on my ankle, and then disappeared. That night I let the dogs out to pee. But Roscoe didn't come back for an hour or more. He came loping back to the house with something exactly dropped at my feet. A present. It was the woodchuck's head.
Anywhere. John Cage. From a composer who loves to write pieces that didn't seem to have genuine beginnings or endings. Pretty good advice. Apparently, Pablo Picasso once said that there's nothing worse than a good beginning, because then you spend the rest of your time trying not to wreck it. I say apparently because I heard this secondhand from Brian Eno. Eno has his own way of starting or restarting a project. Anyway, once you get going, there's another John Cage quote sometimes again. I have nothing to say, and I am said.
The Earth is not expanding. The solar system is not expanding. The space between the galaxies is expanding. It is not a performance. It is cooler, less dense, bigger. Gravity is becoming less important now as dark energy takes over, dominates the attractive, the repulsive effect increases. Dark energy is no longer so affected by dark matter's pull as it was in the beginning. The slamming, banging, the energy of the vacuum, the energy of nothingness. Even nothingness has energy. It's pushing everything apart. Undifferentiated consciousness, convincing evidence of. Still in the body, but different now. Still made deeper, like blasting through rock. It's easier now to resist, move away, go in another direction. There's nothing holding and nothing to hold together.
In the early 70s, I had an office going on the resident building. It was the whole 6th floor at the top of the building. There was an elevator, but it hadn't been used in years. So I had a 6th floor walk. I went up to go regularly to the other 5 players, and with me, played in the early days of the ensemble. We had regular Sunday afternoon concerts there, and besides, rehearsed a couple of nights a week. Almost all of Music and 12 parts in the high school premiered there. This was all through 71 and 74. We never shut the downstairs door when we were in rehearsal, especially in spring and summer. It never occurred to us that anyone would climb up all those steps to hear us play. One summer evening, we had a visitor. We had been rehearsing for an hour or so, and when we took a break, there he was, sitting on one of the old movie theater chairs which we had found in the street, which lined 3 sides of the
The summer of 1970 was not at all what I'd expected it to be. A relief from the 7-day work week of school, church, and Saturday trips to St. Johnsbury with my 4 siblings, packed into the country square for a day of music lessons with Mrs. LeBlanc. That summer, it was just my luck that my mother had arranged for me to take weekly lessons with the violinist from the chamber music group that had started a summer festival in town. I was very upset about having to practice all summer instead of living the wild and free life of a farm girl, and at first I absolutely fought at the opportunity. The teacher had rented a house on an old farm about a mile and a half up the road. My mother's convincing stroke of genius was to let me drive one of the farm tractors back and forth to my lesson each week. The rest is history.
I was sitting at the keyboard working when my 4-year-old daughter came up to me and said, "Daddy, can you guess what I'm doing?" She was making a somewhat violent gesture, waving her arm vigorously back and forth across her upper body, and at the same time holding her left hand to the side of her chin. I studied this for a few seconds and told her that I could not guess what she was doing. But she persisted. She kept making the gesture, and then once again said, "Daddy, can you guess what I'm doing?" After a few more seconds, I asked, "Are you playing the violin?" And she said, "No." She continued to make the gesture, looking at me, and after a little while longer, I told her that I didn't think I could possibly guess what she was doing, and that maybe she should just tell me. She looked at me with extreme exasperation and said, "Daddy, I'm playing the viola."
A few days ago, I decided to follow I clearly explained that I was rebaptized. Sorry. I did the right thing to do when I was young. And the meeting is out. He might have been there for some time. I'm sorry.
The good thing is up there, the
Alright, this is not a true story, but it is a personal one. It involves time travel. Not the important kind of time travel. You know, it's not about changing what happens. It's more about remembering. Because I find that I tend to remember the things that I should forget. And then forget the things that I should remember. So my plan is to go back in time and recover some of those memories so that I can tell stories about them. Because so far this is the only story I've ever told.
Immediately after my parents were married in 1950, my father became a naturalized citizen and was drafted into the U.S. Army. He was assigned to the 7th Army Symphony and was sent to Germany to play viola for 2 years. My mother, who played the flute, decided to join him and became the only woman and the only civilian in the orchestra. She brought their cat, Pumpkin, with her, and the three of them traveled through war-scarred Germany together. At some point, my mother composed a song for Pumpkin that went like this. Pumpkin, Schlumpkin, Dimitri, Tiumkin, oh, what a wonderful kitsy. 20 years later, when our family moved to Los Angeles, my parents ended up buying a house that had previously belonged to the film composer. Dimitri Tiumkin had already died, or I'm sure my parents would have sung the song to him at the closing.
Begin anywhere. That's what the sign says, right over my computer at home. Actually, the sign says, begin anywhere. John Cage. From a composer who loved to write pieces that didn't seem to have genuine beginnings or endings, this is pretty good advice. Apparently, Pablo Picasso once said that there's nothing worse than a good beginning, because then you spend the rest of your time trying not to wreck it. I say apparently because I heard this secondhand from Brian Eno. Eno has his own way of starting or restarting a project, namely a set of problem-solving cards known as oblique strategies. If you get stuck, you're supposed to pull a card from the deck and read it. My favorite is, honor thy error as a hidden intention. But try faking it, close second. Anyway, once you get going, see another John Cage.